What's up guys, Houndish here, and today we're jumping in with another Destiny 2 video, this one alongside the weekly reset for the 12th of August. So, initially ahead of reset, we did get a patch for the game today. We'll break down all of the patch changes, some of them pretty impactful, and additionally we have a new portal modifier which adjusts the score multipliers to basically allow us to complete easier activities for progression rewards. We'll talk about what that means, and otherwise we'll round up the featured activities for reset, as well as key rewards for the week, inventories like Eververse, and a couple of updates from Bungie which are worth keeping in mind. So if you guys find this video helpful, do us a huge favor and give us a rating down below. Also get subscribed and I can keep you posted with more Destiny content, but otherwise let's get into it. We should start out by saying this is the final week for the Solstice of Heroes event 2025. Normally, these events would be 3 weeks long, but Bungie have dropped it back to 2 weeks. So in this final few days, if you want to wrap up any triumphs, obtain titles, event track rewards, or of course grind for the Solstice weapons and armor, then we have a few days left to take advantage of it. Another thing to take advantage of this week, but Bungie have introduced boosted drops in terms of tiers and portal boosts, so there's a new score multiplier which essentially boosts score results, meaning that easier activities with a few less modifiers will drop equivalent rewards to our hardest activities. Basically, it will help speed up progression just a little bit, so that's another thing paired up with the Solstice changes and the additional loot, which is worth taking advantage of. Otherwise, Trials will be back again on Friday, basically picking up from where last weekend left off, so if you're still hunting down armor, any other featured weapons, then we can continue to do that at the same time as Xur arrives on Friday's daily reset, so overall it's going to be a pretty good week in terms of progression in the game. Now though, let's get onto the patch notes for the update today, which is update 9006. This is actually quite a large list of patch changes, starting with the portal. They say portal training tiers are now disabled for players upon reaching power 200. So modifier reloading in solo and fire team ops is now possible after reaching 200, even if the training tiers were never completed. On top of that, they fixed an issue where the reward multipliers in the reward forecast and in activity complete post-game Carnage report were not correct. And that occurred when under fire team power, unless a loadout changes mid-activity. Otherwise, they fixed an issue where players could not reconnect in Grandmaster portal activities if disconnected, and one where players at exactly 450 power who received grade A scores would receive no scored rewards. So some good changes to the portal there. Doesn't look like we've had any of the power changes just yet, but this is a pretty good start. Then as we look to Trials, they fixed an issue where the Trials by Firing Squad seasonal challenge wasn't rewarding Trials gear when claimed, another issue where Lighthouse chest rewards were sometimes giving lower tiers than expected. Plus they fixed an issue where Trials Gilding Triumphs were not counting metal progress, and one where the efficiency display was displaying incorrect stats on the scoreboard for Trials, but finally, one where special ammo was being refreshed each round in that game mode. So keep those in mind when we get to the weekend. Otherwise, in Crucible Ops, they fixed an issue where bonus focus rewards would sometimes not drop, another issue where the featured reward would sometimes not drop, so that's nice. They've also updated competitive weapon drop chance to now trigger on activity completion instead of victories, so if you're after the Solemn Remembrance hand cannon, that should make life a bit easier. They also updated additional reward chance to now be earned by all players, instead of only one player on each team. Otherwise, they increased the gear tier earned by B+ grade at reward ranks Bronze and Silver, and C+ and B grade thresholds have been lowered for reward rank Copper and Bronze, which improves the chance that players will receive a bonus drop and the bonus focus drop. Otherwise, for raids and dungeons, they fixed an incoming strand grenade damage bug on Atheon in Vault of Glass, so that won't be as potent now. Also an issue where some players could not access specific dungeons after picking up the associated quests, and one where the Decoherent's imminent debuff in the Desert Perpetual would sometimes disappear. They've also restored the Director's vibrancy to its pre-900 visuals, with additional minor aesthetic enhancements to complement the post-final shape layout changes. Then for gameplay and investment, for Titan Exotic Armor, Wishful Ignorance, they reduced the maximum damage bonus in PvE activities from 200% to 120%, so that has now been fixed. And on Verity's Brow and Spirit of Verity, they've updated it to give strands grapple melee an additive damage increase instead of a multiplicative one, and they've increased the maximum grapple melee damage bonus from 100 to 170. For armor mods, they fixed an issue where some ammo generation chest mods weren't working in Crucible, and an issue where tuning mods were not properly saved to loadouts, so that's nice. On weapons though, for bows they fixed an issue where Fortunate Star had the wrong intrinsic perk of precision when it was intended to remain as a lightweight. And they add that players should see this update on their previously acquired versions of the weapon, otherwise they fixed an issue where Fortunate Star, when dropped to gear tier 2 and higher, would drop with a non-enhanced version of the Eye of the Storm perk. That should also update on already acquired versions of the weapon. Otherwise, for hand cannons, an issue where the RAS Neutralizer Trial Spreadshot hand cannon had lower than expected stat packages, and an issue where Fenutriifera's zoom was set to 14 instead of 12, and the hipfire reticle was displaying when aiming down sights. Then on exotic weapons, for Vigilance Wing, they fixed a problem where the weapon wasn't correctly improving health recovery when Last Stand was active, and it now grants plus 100 health stat when the perk is active. They also reduced wave damage on Dead Messenger against players so that it can no longer kill in a single shot if all 3 waves impact. Also on Burning Ambition, they reduced the Scorch stacks applied by primary ammo weapons to already scorched players by 6, but it's unchanged against PvE enemies. Then on Enhanced 1-2 Punch, they fixed an issue where the buff text was not displaying when the perk was active on primary weapons. They also say for movement, in general for players, movement speed and jump height is now equal to the pre-900 Tier 3 mobility for Titans and Warlocks and Tier 4 mobility for Hunters, so that's the mobility bug that they've spoken about. We should all be moving just a tad quicker now. Otherwise, for Kepler, final blows while in Matter Ball now grant special and heavy ammo progress, so that's kind of useful. Otherwise, on Solstice, they fixed an issue where the Solar Flare Orb had no HUD melee icon, and one where the Solstice Scorched Crucible Ops matches were not progressing the first step of the Solstice quest. Then that Fletched Storm bug for Titans has been fixed, so no longer can it be used indefinitely when holding a Solstice Solar Flare Orb. On to the final few. Here, for Hunters, Tempest Strike, damage now correctly procs Combination Blow, which is nice. For Warlock, Handheld Supernova increases damage versus combatants by 20% in this update, so that's got a bit stronger. And they also updated the artifact perk Shield Crush to give Strand's grapple melee an additive damage increase instead of a multiplicative one. On quests and pursuits though, some players could not restart the Altar of Relativity after performing the Rite of Ignition Step 11 in the Edge of Fate quest, and they fixed the problem with the portal's body counting daily challenge not progressing faster with Guardian kills. Otherwise, in general, they fixed an issue where the Tier 5 Giver's Blessing from the Altar of Relativity required completing more triumphs than were actually available in the title. So the title only requires 24, but all 29 are required in order to pick up the weapon. Lastly, they reduced the frequency of Eververse messaging appearing when logging in or returning to orbit. And finally, music will now play as expected when multiple Guardians interact with the Life of the Party multiplayer emote. So, quite a big set of changes right there. Of course, there are plenty more that we're waiting on, especially in relation to power and gear tiers and the quality of life around those systems, which Bungie have said they'll be adding over the coming weeks into when we get into Ash and Iron and September. But for today, some good changes in the mix, so give me your thoughts on them below. For today though guys, that is everything we have to speak about, so if you found this video helpful, a rating down below very much helps me out. Also, around half of the viewers on the channel still haven't subscribed, so if you do consistently watch my videos, feel free to hit the subscribe button and the bell icon below, and I'll keep you up to date as soon as we get new info, content updates, and of course, commentary from Bungie, so keep it locked and loaded for all of that. Otherwise though, I appreciate you tuning in, and I hope you guys have an awesome day.